The neon lights of New Singapore's undercity painted harsh shadows across Raven Blackwood's scarred face as he studied the holographic warrant. His cybernetic eye whirred softly, analyzing the sparse details provided by the Galactic Council. Target, species unknown. Threat level, Omega. Location, Sector 9, Level 42. Termination authorized with extreme prejudice. Raven had spent 15 years as the Council's most effective hunter, but something about this contract felt wrong. Omega threat levels were reserved for planet killers and terrorist masterminds. The grainy surveillance image showed only a slender, hooded figure. Unusual brief, Agent Blackwood? The synthetic voice belonged to his handler, Director Voss, a towering Arcturian whose crystalline body reflected the city's lights in rainbow patterns. The Council expects swift resolution. The profile doesn't match the threat assessment, Raven replied, his augmented hand unconsciously touching the plasma pistol at his hip. No history, no capabilities listed. Just a death warrant. Voss's crystalline features shifted into what passed for a smile among his kind. The Council's wisdom exceeds our understanding. Execute your orders. The words felt rehearsed, mechanical. Raven had heard similar phrases before every controversial elimination. He watched Voss glide away into the crowded street, alien and human pedestrians parting before the director's imposing form. Level 42 was a warren of abandoned habitation units, scheduled for demolition after the Plague Wars. Perfect hunting ground, or perfect trap. Raven's tactical systems highlighted movement patterns, escape routes, and optimal firing positions as he advanced through the darkness. The target's energy signature pulsed faintly on his scanners, leading him deeper into the maze of corroded corridors. No guards, no defenses, no signs of the massive security presence typical of Omega-level threats. Just silence and decay. He found her in what had once been a hydroponics bay, moonlight streaming through the shattered dome above. The hooded figure stood among dead vines and empty growing tanks, back turned to the entrance. I wondered which hunter they would send, she said, her voice carrying musical undertones his translator struggled to process. The legendary Raven Blackwood himself. I'm honored. Turn around slowly, Raven commanded, plasma pistol raised. Hands where I can see them. She complied, lowering her hood to reveal features that stopped him cold. Opalescent skin that seemed to shift colors in the moonlight. Eyes like liquid silver. Long, dark hair that floated as if suspended in water. Beautiful, but entirely unlike any species in Council records. What are you? He whispered. The last of my kind, she answered. My name is Zaraeth. And I carry the truth that would destroy your masters. Before Raven could respond, his tactical systems screamed warnings. Multiple heavy vehicles converging on their position. Orbital weapons platforms activating overhead. Far more firepower than needed for a single target. They're not just here for me, Zaraeth said softly. They're here to eliminate witnesses. You've seen my face now, Hunter. Soon you'll understand why that condemns you. Raven's mind raced. Standard procedure for Omega-level threats never included orbital strikes in populated areas. They weren't trying to eliminate a threat, they were trying to bury something. His finger tensed on the trigger. Zaraeth met his gaze calmly. You can kill me now, fulfill your contract. Or you can learn why the Council fears one unarmed refugee enough to sacrifice their best hunter as collateral damage. Choose quickly. The first explosions rocked the building's foundation. Through the shattered dome, Raven saw Council dropships descending, their weapon systems charging. 15 years of following orders warred with instincts honed through countless hunts. Damn it, he growled, lowering his weapon. Back exit through the maintenance tunnels. Move. They ran as the world exploded around them, Raven's tactical systems plotting escape routes while orbital weapons turned the abandoned level into an inferno. Zareth kept pace effortlessly, her movements impossibly graceful even at full sprint. "The tunnels connect to the old transit system," Raven shouted over the chaos. "We can lose them in the deeper levels. You better have answers waiting on the other side." "I have more than answers," she replied. "I have proof. The Council didn't just fear my people's abilities, they feared our memories. Every atrocity, every genocide, every world they destroyed while preaching peace and unity, we remember it all." Raven's cybernetic eye recorded everything, building a case file out of habit. "And they're willing to glass a civilian sector to keep those memories buried. The truth has a way of surviving," Zareth said as they descended into the darkness of the maintenance tunnels. "Sometimes it just needs the right allies." Behind them, New Singapore's night sky burned. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and a truth that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Raven Blackwood, the Council's most loyal hunter, had just become its prey. And somehow, he suspected this mysterious refugee would prove to be either his salvation or his doom. The smuggler's freighter shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, its aging engines protesting the strain. In the cargo hold, Raven checked his weapons for the 10th time while Zareth meditated, her floating hair casting ethereal shadows in the dim light. 3 days had passed since their escape from New Singapore. The Council had branded them both terrorists, plastering their images across every comnet in controlled space. The bounty on their heads would have made Raven whistle appreciatively if he weren't the target. "Your thoughts are troubled," Zareth observed, opening her silver eyes. "You question your decision." "I question everything," Raven replied, his cybernetic eye scanning the ship's structural integrity. "Occupational hazard. Speaking of which, you promised answers." She rose gracefully, moving to sit beside him. "My people were called the Lumini. We were scholars, historians, keepers of truth. Our natural telepathic abilities let us preserve memories with perfect clarity, passing them down through generations. Living archives," Raven mused. "No wonder the Council wanted you eliminated. We discovered their secret campaign of species cleansing. Whenever they encountered a civilization that wouldn't submit to their authority, they engineered disasters, plagues, environmental catastrophes, artificial civil wars. Millions of species, erased from history." Raven's augmented hand clenched. He'd been part of that machinery, eliminating threats to galactic peace without questioning the Council's judgments. How many of his targets had been innocent? The ship's comm crackled. "Approaching Frontier Station Omega," their smuggler pilot announced. "Better strap in. Council patrols are thick today." They moved to the cockpit, watching through the view screen as the massive space station came into view. Built into a hollowed-out asteroid, Omega was a haven for those operating outside Council law. If anywhere in the galaxy still held allies, they'd find them here. "Patrol vessel on intercept course," Raven warned, his tactical systems highlighting the approaching ship. "Military grade. They're not buying our cargo transport ID." The smuggler, a grizzled Centaurian named Vex, cursed in 3 languages. "Hold tight. This ride's about to get interesting." The freighter dove toward the asteroid field surrounding the station, engines screaming as Vex pushed them beyond safety limits. The patrol vessel opened fire, plasma bolts piercing the void where they'd been seconds before. "They're broadcasting our ID to the station," Raven reported. "We'll have a welcoming committee if we dock." Zareth placed her hand on the ship's console. Her skin pulsed with internal light as she closed her eyes in concentration. "The patrol crew, their minds are open to me. Showing them what they expect to see." The pursuing vessel's fire suddenly ceased. "Cargo transport," a confused voice transmitted. "You're cleared to proceed. Sorry for the inconvenience." Vex stared at Zareth with newfound respect. "Now that's a useful trick." They docked at a maintenance bay on the station's dark side, away from official censors. Raven led them through service corridors he'd memorized years ago, when he'd been the hunter rather than the hunted. My contact runs a data brokerage operation here, he explained as they navigated the maze. If anyone can help us spread your evidence across the galaxy, it's her. The brokerage occupied a converted cargo bay, walls lined with servers humming with stored secrets. Behind a massive desk sat a woman Raven hadn't seen in 5 years, her dark skin decorated with luminescent circuit patterns. The infamous Raven Blackwood, she said, cybernetic eyes scanning them. Here I thought you died in that terrorist attack on New Singapore. I'm hurt you didn't call sooner. Hello, Trinity, Raven replied carefully. We need your help. We being you and the mysterious alien the Council's desperate to eliminate? Trinity's augmented gaze fixed on Zara-Eth. Interesting company you're keeping these days. Before anyone could respond, security alarms blared throughout the station. Trinity's screens filled with incoming ships, Council warships, dropping out of hyperspace in attack formation. They followed us, Raven realized. The patrol ship was a tracker. More than that, Zara-Eth said grimly. I sense minds aboard those ships, minds like mine. They've enslaved survivors of my people, twisted them into weapons. Trinity's fingers danced across holographic controls. Station defenses are compromised. They're broadcasting override codes. How long to download your evidence? Raven asked Zara-Eth. Too long, Trinity answered for her. But I have a better idea. She produced a quantum data core, tossing it to Raven. Everything I've collected on Council Black Ops for the past decade. Combined with your friend's memories. It would expose everything, Zara-Eth finished. But we'd need access to the galaxy's primary comnet hub to broadcast it. Trinity smiled. Lucky for you, I know where to find one. There's a resistance cell operating out of the Arcturus mining colony. They've been building a backdoor into the hub for months. The station shuddered as the first Council weapons found their mark. Raven's tactical systems calculated their rapidly diminishing options. We need to split up, Trinity decided. I'll create a diversion, make them think you're heading for the commercial docks. Get to Bay 23, my personal ship's waiting. Voice activation code, Revolution. Come with us, Raven insisted. Trinity shook her head. Someone has to stay and sell the deception. Besides, my network needs to survive to receive whatever you're broadcasting. Now go, save the galaxy, expose the truth, all that heroic nonsense. They ran, Trinity's voice following them through the corridors, and Raven? Try not to get my ship blown up. The Council's enslaved telepaths searched for them, their twisted minds brushing against Zara-Eth's consciousness like oil on water. But Trinity's diversion worked, they made it to Bay 23 as explosions rocked the station. Trinity's ship was a modified stealth runner, sleek and dark. As they lifted off, Raven watched Council forces converging on the commercial sector through the tactical display. She'll be okay, Zara-Eth said softly, sensing his concern. Her mind burns bright with determination. Like yours. The stealth runner slipped past the Council blockade, its advanced systems rendering them virtually invisible. As they plotted course for Arcturus, Raven realized how completely his world had changed in just 3 days. He'd been the Council's hunter, their instrument of justice. Now he was a revolutionary, running from the very authority he'd served, protecting a woman who challenged everything he'd believed in. And somehow, watching Zara-Eth's opalescent skin shimmer in the starlight, he couldn't bring himself to regret any of it. The Arcturus mining colony hung in space like a shattered planet, its surface riddled with massive excavation sites and processing facilities. Trinity's stealth runner wove between clouds of mining debris, following encrypted coordinates to a hidden docking port carved into an asteroid's dark side. Homie, Raven muttered as they landed in a cavernous bay lined with salvaged ships and stockpiled weapons. His tactical systems identified enough firepower to wage a small war. You were expecting perhaps a luxury resort? The voice belonged to a massive drachnid warrior, his scaled hide bearing the scars of countless battles. I am Thorak, and you're either very brave or very foolish to come here. Zaraeth stepped forward, her silver eyes meeting Thorak's yellow ones. We bring truth and a way to share it. The Council's crimes cannot remain hidden. The Drachnid's expression shifted as he studied her. Alumni. We thought your kind extinct. He turned to Raven. And the Council's most feared hunter. The universe has a strange sense of humor. The Council enslaved the last of my people, Zaraeth explained. They use them to hunt us even now. Time grows short. Thorak nodded grimly. Follow me. The others will want to hear this. The Resistance base sprawled through a network of mining tunnels, transformed into a self-sufficient fortress. They passed hydroponics gardens, weapon fabricators, and training areas where diverse species honed combat skills. The command center occupied a natural cavern, its walls covered in holographic displays showing Council movements across the galaxy. A dozen Resistance leaders gathered around a central tactical table, humans, aliens, and even a few rogue AIs in mobile platforms. The famous Raven Blackwood said a scarred human woman with augmented eyes similar to Trinity's. I'm Commander Jensen. Last time we met, you were hunting my cell on Europa. Nearly caught us too. Things change, Raven replied evenly. I've seen the truth about who I served. Show them, Thorak rumbled to Zaraeth. She placed her hands on the tactical table. The holographic displays flickered as she projected memories, countless worlds burning, species systematically eliminated, all evidence erased by Council bureaucracy. The quantum data core from Trinity added context, filling in gaps with hard evidence. The Council presents itself as a beacon of civilization, Zaraeth explained. But they demand absolute compliance. Any species that refuses to submit, any culture that might challenge their authority, all are marked for extinction. We've suspected something like this, Jensen said. But proof has been impossible to obtain. The Council's information control is absolute. Not anymore, Raven activated his tactical display. We have a plan to broadcast this evidence across every comnet in Council space. Trinity said you've been working on accessing the primary hub. A holographic map materialized, showing a massive space station near the galaxy's core. The Nexus, Jensen explained. Heart of the Council's communication network. We've spent years infiltrating their security, placing dormant programs in their systems. One chance to activate them all at once. The Council knows we're coming, Zaraeth warned. They'll have their telepaths watching. I can feel their corrupted minds even now, searching. Then we give them something to find, Thorak grinned ferally. A full assault on their primary military base in this sector. While they focus on the obvious threat. A small team slips into the Nexus, Jensen finished. Risky. Probably suicide. I assume you two want to volunteer? Raven's augmented hand touched his plasma pistol. We started this. We'll finish it. The next hours passed in a blur of preparation. The Resistance provided them with upgraded gear, stealth suits, advanced weapons, and security breaching tools. Engineers modified Trinity's ship with additional countermeasures against telepathic detection. Raven found Zaraeth in the hydroponics garden, her opalescent skin glowing softly among the plants. She turned as he approached, and he felt the now familiar brush of her consciousness against his. You're worried, she said. Not about the mission. About what comes after. I've spent my life following orders, he admitted. Being the weapon someone else pointed. This is different. Because now you choose your own path. She moved closer, her floating hair catching the artificial light. Or because you're not sure where that path leads? Both. He met her silver gaze. The council trained me to be alone. To trust no one. But these past days. You're not alone anymore, she touched his face, her fingers cool against his scars. Whatever comes, we face it together. The moment was interrupted by alert klaxons. Jensen's voice echoed through the base, Council fleet incoming. All units to battle stations. They found us, Raven's tactical systems came alive with threat assessments. No, Zaraetha's eyes widened. They let us lead them here. The telepaths, they wanted the resistance location more than they wanted us. The cavern shook as the first bombardment began. Through the command center's displays, they watched Council warships emerging from hyperspace, their weapons already firing. Time for a new plan, Raven activated his combat systems. We need to save these people before we can save the galaxy. The battle for Arcturus was about to begin, and with it, the true test of everything Raven and Zaraeth had built together. The Council's day of reckoning would have to wait, but it would come. They would make sure of that. The resistance base erupted into organized chaos as Council forces hammered their position. Thorak led the ground defense, his warriors setting up heavy weapons in the main tunnels. Jensen coordinated the space battle, resistance ships emerging from hidden docks to engage the Council fleet. We need to reach the secondary hangar, Raven shouted over the explosions, leading Zaraeth through back corridors. If they capture this base, the data dies with it. We have to get to the Nexus. Not without helping these people, she insisted, stopping at an intersection. Her silver eyes glowed with internal light. The enslaved telepaths, I can feel them on the Council ships. They're in pain, their minds twisted into weapons. But maybe. She closed her eyes in concentration. Through their mental connection, Raven felt her consciousness expand outward, touching the corrupted minds of her enslaved kin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then alarms began blaring across Council frequencies. What did you do? Reminded them who they are, Zaraeth swayed slightly, drained by the effort. Their conditioning, it's breaking. They're turning on their masters. Raven's tactical feeds confirmed it. Council ships were reporting internal conflicts, telepaths helping prisoners escape, sabotaging weapons systems. The coordinated assault was falling into disarray. Commander Jensen, he activated his comm status report. Whatever your friend did, it's working, Jensen replied over sounds of battle. Council fleets in chaos. We're pushing them back, but they managed to land troops. Thorax holding them at the main junction, but we're taking heavy losses. A massive explosion rocked the base. They're through the outer defenses. Thorax's voice roared through the comm, fall back to secondary positions. Go, Jensen ordered. Get to the Nexus. Complete the mission. We'll hold them here as long as we can. Raven hesitated. Running from a fight felt wrong after 15 years of moving toward danger. But the weight of the quantum data core reminded him that some battles were bigger than a single firefight. They reached the secondary hangar just as Council shock troops breached the adjacent corridor. Raven's augmented reflexes took over, his plasma pistol dropping 3 armored soldiers before they could raise their weapons. Zaraetha's telepathic abilities sent 2 more staggering back, their minds overwhelmed. Trinity's stealth runner powered up as they sprinted aboard, reactor already cycling. Through the viewscreen, they watched resistance fighters engaging Council forces in vicious close-quarters combat. Launching now, Raven's hands flew over the controls. Hold on. They shot out of the hangar as explosions consumed it behind them, the ship's stealth systems engaging immediately. Council warships filled local space, but their crews were too busy dealing with telepathic rebellion to notice one small vessel slipping past their lines. The resistance. Zaraeth began. They knew the risks, Raven said quietly. Like Trinity. Like everyone who's helped us. We honor their sacrifice by finishing this. The ship's quantum drive engaged, carrying them toward the galactic core. The Nexus awaited, a massive station that served as the hub for all Council communications. If they could upload their evidence there, the truth would reach every corner of Council space simultaneously. Hours passed in tense silence. Zaraeth meditated, recovering her strength and maintaining the telepathic uprising she'd sparked. Raven studied station schematics, plotting insertion points and escape routes. The Council believes they've won, Zaraeth said finally, opening her eyes. The Resistance base is destroyed. They think we died there. Good. Gives us an advantage. Raven brought up tactical displays. But the Nexus will still be heavily defended. How are you holding up? The telepathic link is stable. More of my people break free every hour, though some. She paused. Some were too far gone. The Council's conditioning destroyed their true selves. Raven moved to her side, taking her hand. Her skin shimmered at his touch, and he felt her gratitude through their mental connection. They'd moved beyond words for many things now. The Nexus appeared on their sensors, a technological marvel that dwarfed even Council warships. Hundreds of communication arrays extended from its central hub like crystalline spines, channeling data flows that connected the galaxy. Multiple defensive rings, Raven analyzed. Automated weapons platforms, patrol ships, sensor grids. But there's a maintenance approach through the lower levels. If we time it right. We won't be alone, Zaraeth said suddenly. Others are coming. Ships dropping out of hyperspace, resistance vessels. Legion-class cruisers emerged from hyperspace, bearing the marks of a dozen different resistance cells. Jensen's voice crackled through their comm, thought you could use a distraction. You survived. Takes more than the Council to kill us, Jensen replied. Thorax idea, we evacuated through the deep mines, linked up with other cells. Now we're all in. The Council faces rebellion across 3 sectors. Hit them with the truth while they're reeling. The Resistance fleet engaged the Nexus defenses, drawing fire and attention. Trinity's stealth runner slipped through the chaos, approaching the maintenance corridor Raven had identified. Ready? He asked Zaraeth as they prepared to dock. She smiled, her silver eyes reflecting starlight. With you? Always. They had one chance to expose centuries of Council crimes. One opportunity to change the galaxy forever. And somewhere in that massive station, Raven knew, the Council's deepest secrets waited to be unveiled. The Nexus's maintenance corridors were a maze of power conduits and data streams, designed for automated repair drones rather than humanoid infiltrators. Raven's tactical systems guided them through the labyrinth while Resistance ships engaged Council forces outside. The central data core is 3 levels up, he whispered, checking sensor readings. Security's heavier than expected. They may not know we survived, but they're not taking chances. They're afraid, Zaraeth's silver eyes gleamed in the dim light. Not just of us. The telepathic rebellion spreads. Their perfect order crumbles. They encountered the first real resistance at a security checkpoint. Council combat droids moved with lethal precision, but Raven was faster. His augmented reflexes and years of experience let him disable 3 units before they could raise alerts. Zaraeth's telepathic abilities confused the rest, making them target each other. The Council's greatest weakness, she observed as they stepped over destroyed droids. They trust machines more than people. Machines can't question orders. Speaking of questions, Raven's cybernetic eye scanned ahead. Why aren't we seeing any organic security? A facility this important should have elite troops. His answer came as they reached the upper levels. Bodies littered the corridors, Council security forces, their minds burnt out by telepathic assault. Above them, through the station's internal sensors, they detected chaos. Released telepaths were fighting their former masters, turning the Nexus into a battlefield. Your people's rebellion reached here too, Raven realized. The Council's own weapons, turned against them. Zaraetha's voice held no satisfaction, only sadness for the damage done to her kind. But the station's leaders will be protected. Their mental shielding is too strong for distant influence. The central data core lay behind massive security doors, designed to withstand capital ship weapons. But the Council hadn't counted on having their own systems turned against them. Raven's hacking tools, combined with security codes from fallen guards, gave them access. They found the Council's High Administrator inside, surrounded by emergency generators and quantum computers. The ancient Arctarian's crystalline form pulsed with angry light as they entered. So, the Administrator's synthetic voice held contempt. The Hunter and the Memory Witch. Come to destroy everything we've built? You destroyed entire civilizations, Zaraeth stepped forward. Erased species from history. All to maintain your perfect order. Order is everything. Energy crackled around the Administrator. We guide lesser species toward enlightenment. Those who resist endanger the galaxy itself. Your kind understood too much, remembered too much. Memory is chaos. Funny thing about memories, Raven raised his plasma pistol. They have a way of coming back. The Administrator moved with surprising speed for a crystalline being, energy bolts lashing out from his form. Raven dove for cover as Zaraeth erected telepathic shields, deflecting the attacks. Your revolution dies here, the Administrator thundered. The Council is eternal. But he had forgotten something crucial. While he focused on Raven and Zaraeth, other telepaths had reached the chamber. Freed prisoners, their minds no longer bound by Council conditioning, joined their power with Zaraetha's. The Administrator's mental shields cracked under their combined assault. In that moment of weakness, Raven struck. His plasma bolt shattered the ancient being's crystalline form, ending centuries of tyranny. The data core, Zaraeth moved quickly to the central console. Help me upload everything. Trinity's files, my memories, all of it. Their evidence flowed into the Nexus's communication arrays. The truth spread across the galaxy at light speed, Council atrocities, hidden genocides, centuries of manipulation and murder. No one could deny it now. Through their tactical feeds, they watched the revolution unfold. Council forces stood down as their own populations turned against them. Resistance cells emerged from hiding, supported by newly freed telepaths. The carefully maintained order of millennia crumbled in hours. It's done, Zaraeth said softly, her hand finding Raven's. My people's memories will live on. The truth is free. What happens now? Raven pulled her close, feeling the familiar touch of her mind against his. Now we build something new. Not perfect order, but honest chaos. Real freedom. She smiled. Together? Together, he agreed, and kissed her as the revolution blazed across the stars. Hours later, they stood on the Nexus's observation deck, watching ships from 100 worlds converge. The Resistance fleet had become a liberation force. Jensen and Thorak were organizing humanitarian aid for freed worlds. Trinity's network spread truth faster than Council propaganda had ever spread lies. You know, Raven said, his augmented hand intertwined with Zaraetha's, I spent my life hunting threats to galactic peace. Never thought I'd help start a revolution. You didn't start it, she corrected him. You chose to protect truth instead of order. The revolution started itself. Beyond the station's windows, the galaxy spun on. Somewhere out there, the last Council loyalists were being hunted by the very forces they'd created. Somewhere, the first truly free elections in centuries were being organized. And here, watching it all unfold, stood a hunter who'd found something worth protecting and a telepath who'd found someone worth trusting. The future was uncertain, chaotic, and full of possibility. Just as it should be. The end.